a classroom for 35 years, elementary school, so I taught 9 and 10-year-olds. Also taught at the university level how to teach future teachers about teaching science. So we call that science methods. So I've been retired for almost 2 years, but my husband says I'm not retired, and I'm doing so many projects, I'm really not retired. But I do miss the kids a lot. So you're like my big kids today. Kids can be all ages. So this morning, as we were talking about IODP and some of the other things like the Ross Sea Marine Protected Area, I have a lot of connections with those things. I not only spent 35 years in the class, but I had 3 sabbaticals, which is very unusual for a teacher to be out of their classroom one time for a month or 2. I was able to do that 3 times, to go to Antarctica and work with scientists and then communicate the research. So when they were talking about IODP this morning, they were talking about the Cape Roberts and Andro projects that were drilling in that Victoria Land Basin. I was on the education outreach team for both of those projects. The last project that I worked on with scientists is called Lizard, and we actually cleanly accessed a subglacial lake from the Ross Ice Shelf, so Lake Willans. And all of those are grants supported by the National Science Foundation. Most recently, I've got a couple things that I've done in the last almost 6 months. I was part of Mateo's Reset Project, which was an amazing opportunity for whether I was teaching full-time or not. This was watching an amazing educator in action and watching him inspire a whole generation of students, and particularly girls in science, because all but 2 of our participants were females. And so to work on the different science projects they were doing, you've seen the trailer, you know, I thought it was trying to kill me actually, because the hike was so hard. Oh my gosh, I thought we'd never be done. This was the warm-up hike of 7 miles, the day before the big backpacking. I should have known. But just to see those students in action and to see how we impacted them, not just in science, but in life. It's an amazing thing for an educator to inspire students. And as Mateo and I were hiking along, we're always whipping out the Polar Educators poster to take pictures along the way. So this was we went on a ship to go to Pyramiden, which is an old Russian coal mining town. And this was on our ridiculously long and tough hike. Can't believe I was actually smiling in those pictures. But it was such an experience to watch the students and watch Mateo in action. Now back in December, just a few months ago, I was on a ship back in Antarctica, but in a different capacity. As a woman, part of an all-female expedition to Antarctica, so 76 women in science from around the globe, and we were in the Ross Sea, or not the Southern Ocean, and around the Antarctic Peninsula. So really, I was really thinking of that ocean food web, and which we're going to talk about as part of my activity. So really that was on all of our minds as we were sailing through this area and getting off the ship and learning about everything around us. The interesting thing about Homeward Bound, well, there are many interesting things, but, the big thing for me was that these women were all ages. So from 24 to 60. I'm 60, but I wasn't the oldest one. One lady was 4 months older than me, so I wasn't the oldest. I wasn't the oldest one. I was definitely the oldest. No, I wasn't the oldest one on Reset either. Marie Angela from Trento University, she's like a powerhouse. She was always ahead of me hiking.
But you took the second award.
Pardon me?
You took the second award.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? Second runner-up. But, well, on the last night of this journey, we got back to Ushuaia, and they said, we want someone from every generation to give a talk. I'm like, oh, I'm the old one. They're like, could you do the one for the 60-year-olds? I'm like, thanks for that. Thanks for that. But the thing is, what I told the women, because the young ones were so inspiring, and the ones who were in their 20s and 30s, half of the women could have been my daughter. And what I said to them was, if you were my daughter, I would be so proud of you, that you're in science, and that you are doing this program, and that you are going back and communicating science. So to me, that was very important. And they're not all polar scientists, not at all. Just a few of them were polar scientists. But we had such a connection just in science in general. And this is what 76 women in science look like. We took over the whole ship. So we all had the same coat for the expedition, whatever. And there were two men, part of our group. One was our expedition leader, Greg Mortimer, who's a very famous Australian mountaineer, climbed Everest, climbed K2, climbed like every mountain in Antarctica. He's amazing. He really guided us into some interesting spots to land. And then Marshall was one of the leadership trainers. So we did leadership training, but we also did field trips. And one of my goals, always, is to change how children or people of every age view scientists. So I used to ask my students every year, first day of school, first day of science, draw a picture of a scientist at work. That's all I said, just with a pencil. And this is what I got. Every year for 20 years. This is a college student, so 21 years old. This is a 9-year-old. Okay, they're the same. Bad hair, men, always men. In a laboratory, mixing chemicals, blowing things up, glasses, pocket protector, lab coat. And it's amazing. I would do the same activity at the end of the school year after they had me for a teacher, and you would see females and men. But I liked that. They would try to do pictures of me, and they'd have a little flip in my hair. Crazy. And they would draw people inside, people outside, people in nature, people could be in a laboratory, but maybe they're examining a rock, a sediment core, because I taught them about that. So it really proves that what we do as educators is really important, and that children learn from us, and we need to give them those good examples. We need to get them out of their desks, up on their feet, doing activities, and teaching them and educating them about scientists. So as part of Homeward Bound, and in my classroom, I really was the nutty science lady of my school for many years. Do you guys know who Ms. Frizzle is?
Yeah.
She's the magic school bus lady. She took her students on this magic school bus, and they would go. I was kind of like that lady without the bus. Okay. But we talked a lot about the Southern Ocean and why that's important. Okay, and you think, you fly, when I was flying to Antarctica before, you fly over all the ice and snow and eventually the land, and you don't think about everything that's underneath and how important it is. And we talked this morning about the protection of that Ross Sea marine protected area. That happened right before we went down there for Homeward Bound. That happened in October. We left the end of November, beginning of December. So that was very new. We actually met a man, is his name Richard Pugh? Do you know him, Jose? He's the one that does all the swimming to raise money and awareness for the protection. Have you seen? Yeah. He was on a neighboring ship, and he came over to our ship and did a program. He swims in the Antarctic to raise money and awareness to protect the Southern Ocean. So this was a big deal because 598,000 square miles. And I think this morning the speaker was talking about over 1 million square kilometers of that ocean. So more than twice the size of our state of Texas was protected. So that's a very big deal. So, and also I asked him about this morning because he said 25 people signed it. And what I found out that there are 24 countries, and then there's a representative from the European Union. So that makes number 25, because I wanted to be sure I got it correct. So if you're thinking about that region, it's one of the most productive and nutrient-rich areas. You've got big balloons of plankton, you've got swarms of krill, and somebody asked me a question after we did the activity, or during the activity in the last session, what did students ask you that's surprising, or what did they say to you that was surprising? They never think of the little things like plankton and krill as being important. They think they're just little things, they can't be important. But yet they're the foundation of the food web. So there's a huge number of things that depend on krill, fish and penguins and seals and whales. So we saw some of these animals in action while we were on Homeward Bound and when I'd been in the McMurdo region before. And we also experienced different ice conditions. So it's different sea ice, we saw glaciers, lots of icebergs, and the ice conditions also affect what's happening with the animals that inhabit that region. For me, to see the different components, so looking at, we did landings and we would see different penguins and seals and whatever, but one day we were walking along this beach and I didn't want to go off the hill because the snow was deep and it was hurting my knees, so I just walked along the shore and I went to a tide pool. And I just looked in the tide pool and there were all these creatures in the tide pool, just, moving all around, little fish, little, creatures. And it makes you think, when I first went to McMurdo and put my hand in the aquarium, in the touch and feel tank, I couldn't keep my hand in that water for 10 seconds. And then you start to think about the creatures that live in that water and what it takes to survive. So, and then these are just some, we saw some fur seals and some woodell seals, and I always talk with my students about what are the adaptations that animals have that enable them to maneuver or to eat or to survive in their habitat. So being near that habitat, I really zoomed in on body parts and the various types of seals. When you tell students that you see seals, they don't realize how many different types of seals, bless you, that there are. And how some seals live in harmony with penguins and others are looking for their next meal. So one of the things I wanted to share, this is a resource that's really good for you to, if you're a teacher to use or if you're a scientist, to pass along. The Australian Antarctic Division, this is not a new thing. This has been around for at least, I'd say, 15 years. It's from their program, Classroom Antarctica. And it was originally a booklet, but now it's all available online for free. It's called Who's Eating Who? And so it's a mystery, it's a story. There's a mystery about the disappearance of a bunch of krill. And your students are solving the mystery. So this was originally a full-color brochure, but you could print it out or use it online to share with students. Take a picture of it. Sorry, I'm like in your way here.
It's not like you're in the way.
I know, I know. But so this is not a new resource, but yet it's still a very pertinent resource for you to use. Everybody get a picture?
It's hard to see that link.
I know that
Oh, geez, yeah.
yeah, but you know what? If you just go to the Australian Antarctic Division and Google that and go to Education Resources, you will find this. Okay, you can just type in Who's Eating Who, and then you'll find this.
And we'll get Betty's presentation on the website.
And my presentation will be up, and you'll be able to see the link. I think it's because I clicked on it and it changed color, and I couldn't get it back.
Yeah.
So just to show you, okay, there's a story, and they've got beautiful graphics, okay, and it kind of sets the stage for the learning for the students. You've got, they call the seals the slippery characters. Okay, it's very, very clever. They call the penguins the feathered fiends, not feathered friends. And then you've got the Mr. Bigs are the whales. And so all of these things are involved in the story. They're trying to figure out this mystery of where the krill have gone. The krill have disappeared. And one of the nice things to show students, this is also included, there's a whole food web. It shows the transfer of energy. And to point out to students that here you have a tiny thing like krill, but look at how many things depend on the krill. You've got everything from the baleen whale, you've got the crab-eater seal, the penguins, and lots of critters are depending on the krill. So this leads to the activity that I want to share, which is we're going to build a food web here in the center. Okay, there's a lot of little bits and pieces. I'm going to explain that to you, and then we're going to talk about what happens if some parts of the food web are affected. Okay? Did you want to get a picture of that? Okay? You saw something like this, and I saw something like this morning. Something very similar. This came from Jess Melbourne Thomas, who's a researcher in the Australian Antarctic Division. She gave me this graphic, but I saw something very similar this morning. Okay, so you've got, it just shows, again, some different relationships between the animals and creatures in the food chain. And they've added a fishing boat. Okay, so that's another part of our story. Okay. So these are the creatures that we're going to be talking about in our food web. Okay, and someone had a really good idea in the last session. I'm going to keep the fishing boat out for now. Okay, someone's going to get the card, but don't get in the circle right away. Okay, we're going to talk about and build this food web together. So what I need some people to take these cards. Come on up, don't be afraid. I think there's about 11 cards.
Don't be shy.
Just grab a card. And the people without card, grab a card.
We'll go against the wall and look at the wall.
Oh no, now you're going to come up here and you're going to make a circle. And you're going to stay in a circle, but just keep going. Because your card sign's ready. Okay, come on, I need a squid. Thank you. Leopard seal. One more. Who wants to be plankton? All right. Okay. Some ideas. As a teacher, I will. If you can hear me clap, also, that's what's going to happen. I'm going to call on my teacher. What I do, just to give you some organization, because I like to know how people organize an activity. I put everything, all the different ropes to transport them to Italy. I put them each color in a bag with what it is. So this just says all green, and I have what it's linked to. So this is our phytoplankton acrylic.
Good security, you got a great job.
What is this? This is just a way to organize. Okay, so you two are connected.
You krill me.
Okay, so now you're going to be holding, some of you are going to be holding a lot of ropes, but this is just an organizational thing. I like teachers to tell me, how do they organize a project? Because all these ropes would have been all tangled up in my luggage. And sometimes, if I was doing this with younger kids, I would punch holes and they would just hang this. So then it's higher up, number one. Number two, when they're holding the ropes, they're not trying to hold the cards, they're dropping the cards. And for really little kids, I would also put a picture. I would put a picture of the animal, or if it's a fishing, whatever, I would put a picture on the card. Just to give them as many tools and as much information as possible.
Sure.
Okay? When I've done this with like a forest food web or a prairie food web, I also, on the back of the card, I write things that this thing is like the emperor penguin. Who would the emperor penguin connect with? Because then the children are holding the card and they can look and they're learning while they're waiting for their card. So those are just tips as an educator that I would give. Okay, so that's step one. So, okay, I need my squid. There you are. Two fish. Who's the toothfish? That would be you. Because I used a lot of tape. I went and used electrical tape. That's what I found.
Security at the airport was like, what in the world?
Well, I'm sure I looked at my luggage.
Are you trying to put it on here?
Electrical tape.
Well, you know what, my carry-on bags were examined because this, I didn't want to lose this, so it was in my carry-on bag. There were, I think it was all the gum and all the, you know.
Wow.
What's this person doing? A million packs of gum and ropes. Everywhere. Okay, so the next one.
Before this activity, my hair were not curly.
So see what happens. And I hope that these guys, remember, people gave them back to me last time, so. Okay, so I have to look. This is krill. These are all coming from krill, so just you're gonna have a lot of those. So krill to squid,
Squid.
krill to toothfish, krill to emperor penguin.
Are you crazy?
So, but you,
Who's emperor penguin?
You are.
Oh, emperor penguin, pay attention over there, emperor penguin. As bad as the kids. Okay, krill to Waddell seal.
Giving you a realistic interpretation.
That's true. Humpback whale to krill.
Yeah.
To humpback whale.
We're not done yet.
We're not done, we're not done. Hold on. There are lots of groups. And albatross.
Then we just
Okay.
dance around the quill like a maple.
Okay, now, no.
You can prepare usually.
Okay, so on the directions, I want to show you two. This will be,
Oops.
it's all there for you in the presentation. Now, I used red because that was the color of the electrical tape in my package of colors. You could use whatever, and you don't have to use electrical tape, just however you want to do it. You just need to have the colors because you'll see when we start to talk about the, you know, repercussions of what happens. These are going to be taped.
That's a repercussion of that.
Yes, I know. Okay, so emperor to killer whale.
Emperor.
Oh, no, lucky. Emperor.
Emperor.
Trying to, there we go. And then we have emperor to leopard seal. Here's the leopard seal.
Ain't a bad day.
Yeah, it is a bad day. Yeah, these are gonna be.
The krill are happy.
Well, so far. Okay, then we need killer whale to humpback. Killer whale. Yeah? Who's the killer whale?
she's
Oh, sorry. And then we're going to the.
Yeah, Rasmus is the killer.
And then humpback. Okay, and then killer whale to albatross.
I'm giving my
You are. Okay, go.
It's a good jump.
And then killer whale to leopard seal.
Legal ones.
And also then to Waddell seal. Who's the Waddell seal?
I'm speaking about.
Waddell seal?
Waddell seal. There we go. And also, I can.
Killer word to the portal.
Before we add the last one, as children, when you talk about a food web and you just show them a picture, it doesn't really sink in the same way as making one. To actually act it out. I always feel like getting kids out of their desks and acting something out and being more active, they can remember it.
Adults too.
Okay, well, adults too. So we have one more. Okay, I have to keep looking at the bag, sorry. There's too many. Okay, so fish to killer whale. These are a little shorter. Whoops, sorry, they're shorter. Listen, it took up a lot of my life.
There is a
Okay.
reason because it's short.
Squid to killer whale.
Is there a reason?
There is a reason because it's short.
No, because I just didn't have enough rope in my hands. That's why it's short. I am not going to the store to buy any more.
No, it's fair, but
Okay, maybe fish to albatross. Okay. And squid to albatross.
So killer whale.
Squid.
Oh, squid albatross is killing me too.
So sorry.
So you're.
Okay. And let me see. Fish and squid to emperor penguin.
You are mine.
Fish and squid.
Squid to emperor penguin.
Yes,
And there we go. Penguin.
You are my
Okay.
joy.
And let me see. Fish and squid to Waddell seal. Sorry, squid.
Fish.
And fish. Well, the boat's coming. And then leopard seal.
Leopard seal there.
Squid to leopard seal. and fished.
You're just so popular.
You better grow fast and multiply.
Hard life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To be a
Well, where do you see, okay, so where's my grill?
Yeah.
Okay, so now,
I talked to
once, well, you're connected. Okay, so now, I'm just gonna put this up and you can take a look, just so you're familiar with it. We're talking about what are the impacts on one species, or what impacts all the species. So, Jose,
Yes.
shake all of the ropes that you have.
Are you ready?
Yeah, just Jose. Okay, who can feel him?
I can.
Yeah.
Oh, I lost my plankton.
Blowout. If you can feel Jose shaking the rope, you shake your rope.
Oh, Julia.
So,
Come on, Blanche.
she's having a hard time.
She's having a hard time because she's being eaten up.
There you go. Okay, stop shaking.
No harder.
So you think about this, you think about the krill is affecting so many other parts of this food web. So if there's a problem like overfishing of krill, what it affects everything else in this food web. Okay? What if you can pick other things too? Okay? You can say, we're not going to drop the ropes because that would be a disaster right now. But you can say students who are affected, if there was a loss of plankton, okay, plankton, shake your rope, just,
Shake it.
okay, but then she's affecting Jose, and again, then everybody's affected by krill, shake your rope.
Yeah.
That's it, why, come on, just
You want? It's the whole thing of importance.
I
Go
want to get a
into his
picture
head.
before
Which is the use of krill? Because
You're the base.
Jose, what do they use krill for?
fishing.
She asked about what do they use krill for, what do they use it for?
Krill oil.
What are these? Yeah.
Krill oil.
Now today,
Yeah.
if you go to any shop, even within Europe, omega-3 pills, you can see it anywhere.
Rat oil.
On TV, yeah.
Yeah.
So you,
Some that capsules. Actually,
Fish to make
last year, I was on a research cruise on a British-Norwegian expedition that we compared what the krill we were catching
yeah,
with the fishing vessel next to us, Norwegian. So we did the research with Norwegians, and at the same time we were fishing at the same time. We wanted to compare, and they were tracking seals and penguins at the same time to see if they were competing
in that area there.
at the same time. So literally, of course, the fish and the penguins and seals catch the same as the fishing vessel, and they were exploring key areas within the ocean.
So what if we
but
had
there's
the
a
fishing
management
boat now?
discussion.
We had the fishing boat. Okay, I don't have a string for you to hold, but what happens if we had that fishing vessel?
There'll be more pressure
Yeah.
in all of you,
Yeah.
because there'll be less of me. But nowadays, that's one thing that we could play is it much depends on much the fishing boat is catching and
Yes.
where it's catching. Because if you're catching small quantities, and that's what Capilar is doing
Yeah.
to manage this,
Allowing.
I could still be huge quantities. You're just removing a little bit. But imagine that Marcus wants all of you.
Lots of krill.
And you see the population's decreasing, the penguins are going down. And the other thing,
Will you repeat the shake after, because
He
okay,
wants the shaking.
yeah, the shaking.
the shaking,
One thing that we're working right at the moment, it will be useful in the schools, and it's right in the science aspect, is it's a major challenge to differentiate the impact on krill of climate change with fishing. Because you don't know if it's an environmental change or a fishing
it's a
change.
fishing
So
change.
now we're working on areas that there's no fishing, with areas there is fishing.
So to compare.
To compare
And I
and
think
to
we need to have those discussions about things like the Ross Sea Marine Protected Area.
Mhm.
Why would they do that? How will that help this ocean ecosystem?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a very good point to compare.
So at the zoo, we talk about fishing techniques. And if we were to lay this, everybody laid it gently on the floor
Don't do it.
and stepped away, and then Marcus laid a transept of where he wanted to fish, dragging his whatever. So he laid it right there. Every rope that it hits is affected in some way with certain fishing techniques. And you could talk with your students, you know,
About
that is the marine protected. If we know that the krill here and a majority here, and he can fish but we can protect this part, and it, you know, you take older students beyond just
Yeah.
a food web to policy to fishing, and you know, the human species still need fish, so how can we do that sustainably?
And I would even talk with my young students
Yeah.
at a very basic about policy and about things like scientists doing those comparisons and protecting what's happening in both of those areas. There's a lot of conversations that you can get into. I've also seen this activity done with one rope.
Right.
And you might have seen like a sun in the center. And there might be more than one of your cards. And so the sun starts out connecting with the plankton. And then who eats that? And you're going back and forth and you're going around the circle that way. And then you can have the same shaking effect or the same dropping. If you're affected, drop your rope. You can do it that way. It depends on with how many students you have. If I was doing this with my whole class, I would probably double the number of cards so that each child would have a role so that no one's left out, feeling bad, left out.
We did it with an art project.
Yeah.
Where this is a food web, but it doesn't show the real true intricacies. You know, that emperor penguin goes here and here. But if you put these same names on a piece of paper and they utilize colored pencils and they draw who all eats this, it becomes, and every time a different animal is the predator, they change the color of their pencil. The web, and they can go on and on and on and on and on, you know, as long as they want. I have students that have done it in the evenings and for fun, for days. It's incredible artwork that's just these amazing, very straight lines, but it shows that this simple web that we often see is far more intricate than just this. It's just layers and layers of.
And the other thing you can do, there's a book that we use called Pass the Energy, Please, to talk about how the energy is passed from one part of the food chain to the next part. And we put magnets on the back of the cards. As we're reading the book, our boards were magnetic, you could use tape. We were building the individual food chains. So chains of 2, chains of 3, chains of 4. And so the kids could see that a food chain is not just one size. See how intricate those are, because some are 3, some are 4, some are 5. And then how they overlap. This is the web, shows how everything overlaps. Yes?
No, I don't know if it makes sense, but another idea would be that, for example, if the green is the connection between the krill and the plankton, we can put, for example, a black end for the plankton, that is the prey, and a red end in the krill side. So in that way you can detect if I'm
Prey situation.
more a prey or predator. So I would see that maybe I'm more prey than predator. Otherwise, for me, if I'm a children, I don't know, I have many lines, but maybe I don't know if I'm more prey or predator.
If you were in my class, after we got this set up, we would sit down holding our ropes, and then we would have time to discuss things like that. Like, are you the predator? Are you the prey?
Are you both?
Or are you both?
Right.
Yeah, you are both. Well,
Yeah.
I would get them set up, we would talk like we have so far, but then I would sit down and continue the lesson, you know, let's talk about the predator-prey relationships. So, try me to take a picture for you.
I just add just one small example on the predator-prey interactions that I find very interesting that we found out, is that we think it's always one direction. It could be bi-directional. For example, toothfish and squid. It's really interesting that toothfish, when they're big, they will eat all the squid, but their squid, when they get bigger, they will eat the toothfish. So this will swap their role.
And
The
also-
colossal squid
and also
is the
krill.
example.
Krill can eat krill.
Sorry?
Krill can eat krill.
Smaller krill, maybe.
Or you can add, if you add more to complicate, you have
also eat yourself.
the different life stages of the various animals. So I'm a larva of this,
Yes,
but I'm
and it could be
the full
eaten.
size of it over there. So then it just becomes.
And then the other addition is dependence on ice.
Yes,
Okay,
and
and
that
ice
was
is on
brought up
the
in the
news.
last one as well.
Yeah, in the Arctic, it's like a card game that we played at Hanover, and it really shows, depending on what event happens, like an oil spill where the ice then is no good, or carbon pollution, so it takes away, heats up the atmosphere and the ocean water and takes away the ice. How many
Well, in this situation.
things could,
Yeah.
yeah, ice algae is dependent on ice, but how many, and so if the ice goes, how many chains are going to drop?
Yeah, from the
All
plankton to
Right.
everything else.
Yeah.
One thing that also is very interesting, and it depends on how deep you go, is
Yeah.
between top predators and apex predators. So apex predators are really the top ones, the ones that are not eaten. And top predators are the ones just a bit below, but can be eaten by somebody else, but they are higher. Like penguins, we say that penguins are top predators, they are, but they are not apex predators.
No.
Because above them we have killer whales.
Yeah.
So leopard seals and killer whales, we say they are apex predators.
Also whales, yeah.
I mean, depending on the age
Well,
group
they
you're
would
working
eat
with, you can
Leopard
take
seals would
this
eat
in
leopard
a
seals.
lot of directions.
No, are you
And I-
sure leopard seals won't eat them? Are you sure?
Not sure,
really,
no.
I really am.
Sure.
I think leopard seals will.
We'll eat what?
Well,
No, I mean, the
Leopard
water
seals
seal
Oh, yeah,
should
they
be,
talked about the meat
okay,
loaf.
it's
I think
just
they will.
top,
Eating the
top.
crab eater.
Okay, just have an idea,
Okay,
just
stop.
another concept.
So I added a couple things before we put this way. I mean, like I said, we could use one rope, you could add the sun, you could add more cards, or you could add other members of the marine life. This is just a sampling. You can make it as complicated or as simple depending on the age group and how deep you want to get into the conversation and getting into those predator-prey relationships. Very,
You can go for research with older students and say, this is your animal.
absolutely.
You need to study it and know
Right.
what it
What
eats, what it
is
doesn't,
it?
And before we even
and have
do
it all
this
on a card ready to go before you do this activity, so they're ready to debate.
Well, and you
Hey, I would
start
not.
off with your ropes and then you get to hand out the ropes to the correct stations because
Right.
you know
Yeah.
the connections.
Yeah.
So there's lots of ways to, so if you can try to organize, like I'll take all the white ones. Because that's an easy one to grab. And then you guys kind of organize yourselves.
Oh, you have most of the red ones.
Okay.
Only the white ones.
I have, so you have the red.
I
Yeah,
took
the
the
red.
green.
Oh, just to,
Pardon me?
Plankton, take the green.
I color-coded them to know who was going to who, so that I could, like, and I wrote it
It's
on each
written on our
bag.
sack.
On the back, so that I know which ones to connect
Your
to.
cards?
If you're not gonna use like all one
So, I say,
color
we're gonna
rope.
have the English language.
Okay, guys, I'll take everything.
So do we have?
I wanted to share that we've mentioned at this workshop, but we haven't talked about, are the master classes for PEI. I think you've seen it mentioned, but I want to tell you more about that because I want you to be more involved. So we've had about, I think, 5 master classes. Jose has been a scientist paired with Patricia. Okay, I've been a teacher paired with my friend Cliff Atkins in New Zealand and also with Jess Melbourne Thomas, who is from the Australian Art Division. We did this marine life and this activity as part of a webinar. So the webinars are about a little over an hour long, and they're given in different time. We try to hit different time zones each time we do one, and try to have scientists and educators from different countries working together. So we're pairing up a scientist and an educator. The scientist is improving their communication skills, and actually so is the teacher, but the teacher is building skills of communicating the science to their students. Okay, so this is the master class series. You can find the master classes archived on the PEI website. Although I did check, David, we never got to do that, but David's going to make sure that the marine one that Jess and I did will be posted. You can actually also Google the titles of the master class on YouTube, and that's how I found.
We have a PEI YouTube channel, Polar Educator International YouTube channel, so
Okay.
subscribe to it because all these videos will end up there.
So even if you can't participate the night or the day of the webinar, you can
still
certainly look at the archive. And then there's a 2-week discussion group after the webinar. So then we urge people who have participated to get in the conversation. How do you use this as a scientist? How could you use this as an educator? So share your ideas with us and with the group. And so these discussions, you could, like, you've added a lot of really good comments. So just say, it's like, hey, have you thought about trying this? Have you thought about trying that? We're looking for the sharing of ideas, okay, as part of the webinar series. So the one that I did with Jess was called An Introduction to Antarctic Marine Ecosystems. So she presented her science, okay, as a marine biologist, and then I did the activities that you might do along with it. And I also shared that Classroom Antarctica, Who's Eating Who. So trying to pair that up.
And one thing we ask the scientists is we choose with the scientists a communication skill
Yes.
that they're going to focus on. We've had a scientist that focused on analogies. So every time they did like 6 analogies during his talk, and every time he pointed it out, we're going to use an analogy here. And he did. Jose, I think you did.
Yeah, I did some
We had asking good questions was
Asking
one.
good questions,
Also,
graphics.
not using language that's too complicated, like,
So
keep it simple.
Because that's,
Don't-
sorry, before I interrupt, that's great for us as scientists, because you're teaching us to, and I think that's a great point, because you oblige the next scientist that wants to be engaged in PEI, that actually not asking them to help educators, but you're helping them to become better leaders. That is great.
We're asking you, we've already said, please make sure you're signed up on the PEI website, not just the Facebook page. And then look for these webinars. The next one probably won't be till early fall because we're coming to the very busy end of the school year for educators. And then summer, there's not as much interest. So we'll probably have another one in the fall. Look for that and sign up to be a part. We want more participation and more people, getting involved in the discussion and using these materials. That's the whole idea, is to share with others.
Now, one thing that I would like to add is that last year we did the first Masterclass
Yes.
International. So it was an event in 2 days, 2 different days, that was done one day completely in English, and the same topic, completely the same topic, was done another day in Italian. So I'm telling this because I'm saying this because we are in Italy now, so some teacher I didn't find this webinar posted yet in the website, but I'm sure that we record it.
I'm sure it's recorded.
They're all on the YouTube channel.
Yeah, but this is not in the link that you can access so far. It was not in the link that
So we'll
available
look at
to
that.
access for the user of the website.
Okay.
So was an idea that we wanted to implement. So if everybody has an idea about to have a webinar in another language but English, or to a bilingual webinar, I think it's more than welcome. As we are dealing with
Well, the
this
more
issue
people that
about
get involved
the
and
linguistic
want to be a part of
issue.
this,
Yeah,
then we
so-
can do more of those things,
Yeah,
which would be
so-
great. But Teo also, he said if I had time, and I did in the last session as well, want to remind you of something else that's been mentioned by Louise, but also I want to go more in depth about the Flexibit, which is part of Androl. So the website is static, as Louise said yesterday, but the resources are still there for you to use. The Flexibit is a flexible package of resources, meaning there are 5 themes. You can use 1, you can use 5. You can use some of the activities, you can use all of the activities. It's really up to what you want to do with your students and how old your students are. I want to show you very quickly how I use that with my young students. Because I was a part of the first season of Androl when this was developed. So we were testing out the Flexibit activities. So these are my students, and actually Mateo's in that picture. He was in my classroom in Illinois, visiting at the time. I taught my students about the topics, and then I let them be the teachers. So each one of my students had a job, and I just stood back as the teacher and let them teach. And they taught their parents. The parents were amazed. Like, I can't believe my kid knows about ice sheets and ice shelves and glaciers, and how did they, learn all this? And they taught their peers. My teammates did not want to host this. This is a lot of work. They said, but we'll copy yours if you host it. We'll copy your classroom if you do it. I'm like, okay. Because at least their students got the exposure. So my students for several days had all the exhibits and all the activities with ice and lot ice and glaciers and everything. And they were in charge, and it's amazing. It's like what Mateo did with the Reset program. You let the students be in charge. It's a very powerful thing at any age.
I
Yes.
just add to that list of feelings, empowered. Because the kids
Absolutely.
feel empowered.
They absolutely do.
And not
Look
the
what
kids.
I'm doing. You know, I'm an expert in this. I'm doing this podcast about, you know, ice sheets, and I'm the expert on ice sheets of my class. And each student has a small part, but together they host this big event. The posters, everything's available on the Andro website in terms of the education package. These posters are translated into 14 different languages. So you can print the posters. Louise also said she's got folders left in her garage, as do I, of Andro resources, folders with the posters and DVDs. She doesn't have money to mail them, but if you want one, you could ask Louise, she would mail it to you if you could give her the money. So, but you can also get the posters online and translated. And each poster has a wealth of information on the poster, but then activities that go with the poster. So this one was theme 3, reading the raw course. And so all the activities go along with that theme. How do scientists read and interpret the raw course?
On this website, you don't actually get the poster mailed to you, you have a PDF.
You
So have to
download
take
it,
it, download it, print
The
it.
thing is, you can download it and put it on your screen like I've done. Or you can print it, or you can ask Louise to mail you a package of the posters, smaller versions of the posters. So some of the activities would be making your own model rock core. And Julia yesterday had a life core. I don't know if you saw hers in the hands-on. It's the same idea with the clear plastic tubing and then the PVC pipe end caps. And you could build your own model rock cores. Also, you can build a model of the drill rig. My students were talking about how the drill rig works, and this student was showing, I had a drill bit from Andrew that they gave me because it wasn't any good anymore. So Alex gave me the drill bit, and so she's showing the drill bit. My buddy Cliff just took some PVC pipe